Welcome, everyone, to Registria's first webinar of 2026. We're going to give it just a minute before we get started and let folks join from the lobby, and then we'll kick off. Okay, so welcome to the webinar, Leveling Up and Taking the Post-Purchase Experience from Average to Exceptional. We appreciate everyone who is joining us today. I want to kick us off first by saying we are very dedicated as Registria to providing you with insights and strategies that have a great impact on your company and also, most importantly, your customers. And so we are very dedicated to sharing these ideas and strategies with you today. And this is just the beginning of many more insights that we will be providing throughout the year. So with that, I'm going to introduce myself. I am Heather Wilkerson. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Registria. But more importantly, I get the honor to be the host for today's session and introduce the speakers for today. Our first speaker is Colin Cohen. Colin is the Chief Executive Officer at Registria. He diligently and passionately leads Registria at the intersection of data technology and customer experience. Very passionate about the product that we put into the market that benefits both our clients and their customers. And Matt Parsons, who is our Chief Revenue Officer. Matt's primary hat is working directly with brands to help them solve really meaningful challenges and derive outcomes as it relates to the customer experience. And Matt will provide a lot of great insight from a brand's perspective and strategies and real results that are occurring in the real world. So with that, I'm going to pass it to you, Colin, to kick us off.
Okay, so again, welcome. We are very glad you could join us today. So briefly, our mission as a company is to help brands wow the customers that you have with an exceptional ownership experience that's going to extend over the lifetime that your customers own the product. And there are three core elements to that. The first is you have to know who the heck your customers are to be able to engage with them. The second is bringing a lot of value along the way so that those customers stay engaged with your brand. And then the third is leveraging data for a better understanding of your audience, but at the same time to be able to improve the ownership experience that they're having because you know who they are, you know more about them, and you can deliver more personalized and contextualized experiences for them. So again, we are all about helping brands and consumers just have a fantastic relationship and engaging those consumers along the way. And part of what Heather was referring to earlier is like we're all consumers, and we've all had really good experiences and we've had bad experiences. So I would just be curious to kick this off. If you could share in the chat just experiences or frustrations that you've had with just brands that you bought from. And I'll just give you a brief example of mine. There's a company that I bought a major appliance from, and I had a problem with that appliance, and I literally had 8 different calls with that company and had to share my information 8 different times to be able to ultimately get help. And that just soured my whole experience. So I'd be curious, if you don't mind, just throw some of your frustrations into the chat, and then I have a follow-up question after that.
Okay, Colin, it looks like we have some good responses to your question in the chat. The question was, what are some experiences or frustrations with brands that you've bought from? And I've seen a similar thread in many of these. So it looks like when the purchase is highly considered or a higher ticket priced item, that the frustration rises even more so and the person is less likely to buy when support is not timely or it's not easy to get or find. So that's definitely a common theme that we're seeing. Even one person said when the handle came off the refrigerator because of a small part failure, I had to buy a $600 new door handle and pay a similar amount for installation, and it took weeks to resolve. So I think there's definitely frustrations, although no brands were named.
So it looks like we're getting some frustrations. Hopefully you can use this as a therapy session. Uh, it is just very frustrating, and we've all had bad experiences. So as you're thinking about what has frustrated you with companies that you've bought from, also be very interested. Are there companies that you really like that you think just deliver a consistently great experience?
Okay, looking at the chat, I can see some great answers, Colin, to your question. What are brands doing right? One person commented that it's great when the brand or the salesperson follows up after you've purchased the product and you start using it. Even better when that support and follow up is proactive. And I'm also seeing that it's great when brands make everything you need for your product really easy to find. So, Colin, there's a couple answers for you. Back to you.
So folks, what we have found, and we do a lot of, uh, we spend a lot of time talking to consumers. We spend a lot of time talking to brands to better understand kind of what it is that customers expect and where the gaps are. And customers, just as we were talking about in the chat, we've all had a lot of frustrations, and there's some brands that we hold in high regard. And customers have come to expect, that they just want to be acknowledged. They want the brand to know who they are. They want to be treated as a valued customer. They want personalization that truly feels personal, because a lot of time personalization feels very kind of generic and spam-like. They want that personalization to feel like the brand truly understands them. They want choice, but not too much choice. Like, it's very frustrating to go to a multi-page set of products and offers, and have to scroll through. And also the convenience and being able to get access to what they want when they want it. And it's that extra value that they appreciate getting from the brand. And that doesn't always mean savings. It just means kind of a special service or something that they hadn't anticipated that it's going to help them get more value out of the product that they own. And that trusting relationship is just really important for the consumer, because they're more likely to go back to the brand that they like and that they trust. And they're willing oftentimes to pay a little bit more money to do that. And when we have looked at surveys of the companies that brands or that consumers truly enjoy, there are a few brands off to the right that are consistently at the top. Apple, Nordstrom, Air Emirates, Chewy, but these are all service-oriented companies. And including Apple, because when consumers are rating Apple so highly, they're rating the Apple service side of the business. Very interestingly, none of the companies, and I mean none of the companies that are in our client base or in our prospect kind of target market, or even in the top 50 of what consumers are valuing as the kind of highest rated brands, which means that there is both a tremendous need and a tremendous opportunity to be able to close that gap. So there is a gap between what consumers expect and what they are getting from the brands right now. So why is that? So why do most companies miss the mark on being able to deliver a great post-purchase experience to their consumer? So first of all, consumers expect, especially coming out of the pandemic, and I'll come back to that in a moment, that they're just going to have a great experience with all of the brands that they work with all of the time. The challenge is that brands, and we see this time and time again with brands in our client base and in our prospect base, and just kind of generally in the consumer durables and consumer electronics industry, we see that brands are just not very well structured to meet, much less exceed, those customer expectations. So back to the customer, the pandemic just accelerated the paradigm shift. Retailers were shutting down. It was only the big box stores that were open. Brands, by necessity and by customer demand, were opening up their own kind of D2C sites. So customers now were becoming accustomed to dealing directly with the brands. And as a result, the customer expectations of those brands, where they used to rely on retailers to be the engagement body with the consumers, is that those customers are now coming directly to the brand and expecting that same level of service directly from the brand. Yeah, secondly, we live in a shorter and shorter attention span world. And so those consumers, your product owners, they expect that great service because they're accustomed now to dealing with you directly, but they want it fast and they want it immediate and they don't want to have to do a lot of work to be able to get it. And that's great. I mean, it's really helpful to know that the consumers are, you know, all of us as consumers are, you know, we have high expectations and we want the brands to meet those expectations. But the challenge is that the brands are not often structured in a way or integrated in a way to be able to honor what those consumers expect. And frankly, it may seem very kind of easy and straightforward to do it, but when you start peeling back what's necessary to deliver the kind of experience that your customers want, it is not trivial to solve it. So the first challenge is being able to understand who your customers are. And retailers are still often a walled garden. So if you don't know who your customers are, you can't personalize that experience. And if the brand is trying to find an easy path without, you know, having to deliver a personalized experience at a, you know, at a level of one-to-one, then oftentimes the easiest path is to try and come up with one solution that is going to be able to satisfy everyone. So if you don't know who your consumer is or your product owner, and you're trying to have one solution to fit everybody, oftentimes the solution ends up being something that seems quite generic. And as a result, the customer, if they're going to a website or, you know, even to an app, they may feel like that they're having to do a lot of work still to be able to find the material and the resources that are going to be specifically relevant to them, what they own, how long they've owned it, and what their needs are at that point in time. And many of you may experience this third bullet point yourselves. The silos within brands, as much as brands want to be able to bridge those silos, it can be challenging to be able to integrate them in a way to deliver that holistic customer experience. You may have KPIs in a marketing organization that are different from the KPIs in a call center. You may have different groups inside of a company who feel like they own pieces of or a lot of the relationship with the customer, but the budget is not with them or it's with some other part of the business. And so when you end up in this situation where you want to be able to influence what the brand is providing to have a great customer relationship and ongoing engagement with that customer, but you don't own the budget to do it, it just creates these kind of internal challenges within a brand to be able to deliver across those silos, across those functional areas, what you truly want to be able to allow your customer to experience. And then you try and prioritize that within your company among all of the other priorities that are going on, particularly in kind of this more kind of chaotic and challenging time. And people just, you know, our experience is people are finding challenges in being able to elevate the customer experience to be one of the highest priorities and to get the attention across those functional areas to make sure that that experience that they want to deliver is actually delivered. There's an old saying many of you are maybe familiar with, that you spend a lifetime building a reputation and a moment destroying it. And we've all had a bad experience that may have sullied the reputation of a brand that we've bought from before and would potentially never buy from again. And this really does have an impact on the business, which Matt will talk about next.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. You know, these silos really have a big impact on the business, as Colin said. And so on the customer side, you know, they're frustrated with this post-purchase experience, and it can lead to more returns, higher support inquiries, you know, maybe lower reviews. And on the brand side, you're missing the opportunity to drive higher customer engagement and repeat purchase and reduce support calls. So I thought it'd be helpful just to share a few examples from recent conversations I've had with some of our customers to just bring this to life. So one example illustrates the kind of the friction, or as Colin said, kind of from the different silos around the cost versus customer experience, around what's in the product, what materials do they include in the product packaging. And I'll just call them Brand A. They produce high-end coffee and espresso machines, and the product team was looking to cut costs and also make the quick start guide more region agnostic. So they removed a lot of the words and they used clip art to represent how to use a product. The issue is that the US customer and the US market, it led to a lot of questions and calls into their support center because the US owner just expected more and needed more information to be able to, get that initial perfect for use for that espresso machine. Another example, many brands I see and we work with have multiple QR codes on the product. And one QR, and a lot of times they're single use. So one might be to get, videos, one might be to scan for, registering, et cetera. And so, to the consumer, what do you do? Which one is relevant and how do you make sure you're picking the right one? And the final example I'll just share, ratings and reviews are very important. And when a brand takes kind of a one size fits all approach to generating product reviews, they're just not being as successful. So I'll just kind of go through this as brand C. So they typically would send an email asking for review. They would send out product to sample, but the result is they just didn't get a lot of reviews and lower ratings. The customers are happy to write reviews and will reward you with those if you fix a post-purchase experience and you ask them to write a review at the right time. So anyway, those are just a few of the examples that I've heard talking to some of our clients where your customers are really feeling these silos. The good news is there's opportunity for improvement. So next slide. So where to start? First, you're going to want to make sure that the post-purchase information is accessible to the customer. You want to make sure it's personalized to what they own. It's really important to know when they bought it so you can provide it's contextual. It's related to their current need. And then it's holistic. You want to make sure that you're comprehensively answering their question, whether it's providing videos and guides and maybe even, AI responses that help them get their question answered. So how do you do that? The bottom line and kind of table stakes, as we say here, is that you need to know who the customer is and what they own. And as we show on the right, 2025 PwC said 82% of your customers will share personal information to improve that customer experience. So without that, you really, the best you can do is provide general information and hope it's what they're looking for. But if you know the customer, that unlocks the ability for you to present that information that's relevant and personalized to them at that specific moment in the ownership life cycle, which then helps you grow the relationship. So Colin, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Matt. So how do you close the gap? And what are some of the key elements in doing that? So first is moving beyond product registration. The legacy connotation of product registration was that there was a correlation between registering your product and being able to get your warranty. It's important to move beyond that and to think about that first moment as an opportunity to be able to welcome the product owner into the purchase that they just made, into an experience with your brand. Secondly is bringing together all of those functional areas and all of the capabilities that you want to offer to your consumer into a single holistic channel to allow that consumer to be able to go through that channel and get access to whatever they need to at the moment in time that they need it. The third is to proactively identify opportunities to be able to engage with your consumers. And that is over the entire lifetime that they own the product. Again, moving beyond just registration and onboarding, but thinking about what it is that you can do to be able to get your consumer to keep coming back to you, to get more and more value, and as a result, to build more and more loyalty. Fourth is think about that channel also as a new sales channel, because you now have an opportunity to engage directly with those consumers in a it's in a personalized, contextualized format. And then the last is to use data, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment, to enhance the personalization and the relevancy of the experience kind of at every interaction that you have with your consumer. So there's really a flywheel effect that's on the left here, where it's delivering a great ownership experience is going to allow you to collect more and more customer and transactional and engagement data, which provides better customer insights and richer insights that is going to drive more personalized and contextualized experiences for your product owners, which is thereby going to get those owners to become more and more engaged because you're delivering more value through that ownership experience. So by enhancing the ownership experience, you get more data and more insights, which allows you to continue to enhance that ownership experience, meaning more people come back more often, which again gives you more data. And one result of that is being able to glean signals or intents from your consumer base so you can develop audiences to better target those people. And we talk about delivering to an audience of one at scale. And what that means is being able to have a personalized, relevant, contextualized experience that the consumer feels like you know who they are and what they need, but being able to do that for hundreds or thousands of people at the same time. And those audiences could range from I intend to move, or I've just moved, or I've had a child, or my income bracket has changed, or some other life event. It could be propensity. I have a propensity to buy a service plan or a propensity to buy accessories. All of that is data that you can get from your consumers, and it's going to help deliver a much better, more personalized experience for them. And an example is in the bottom right here, where we do see among the data that we collect a higher propensity among product owners to buy accessories within the first 3 months of first purchase. What's also interesting is that they often don't buy those accessories within the first few days or the first couple of weeks because they may not have unboxed their product, or they may have not understood how to get the most value out of it. But it's over that kind of 2 to 3 month period where they start to get more engaged with the product that there is a higher propensity to buy accessories. So for you as the brand, what is it you could be doing at that kind of 6 to 12 week point to provide opportunities for your product owners to understand the kinds of accessories they could get and potentially package or promote those offers in a way that motivates your consumers to buy. So this delivers real results. Matt, to you.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. So yeah, as Colin said, real results that are really important to your bottom line. So higher engagement with the great content that you probably have in certain areas of your website or on YouTube or what have you, that you can measure and understand and learn from that interaction with that content. Reduction in calls to the call center, where customers are able to solve their own problems versus having to place that call. More reviews. This is a game changer, folks. We're seeing over 300% increase in product reviews over traditional review methods through what we've provided with our brands. More identified owners, where our top brands, 65% plus of their customers identify who they are because they want more than just it's not just about registration anymore. It's about getting this great access to this great content, and then a higher lifetime value. So this is why we at Registry have been focused on solving these post-purchase problems for years, and why we introduced Concierge, which you see some screenshots on the right, which is a smart digital guide that helps us deliver this white glove, personalized, contextual, and holistic support. So now I'll turn it over to you, Colin, to close.
Okay, to wrap this up, I mean, we are really passionate about helping you deliver great experiences to consumers. And because we all get frustrated with our own experiences, we eat what we make. So we live the results of what we're doing. And we just wanted to give you a little bit of insight into kind of behind the curtain, the kinds of stuff that we're focusing on. On the left is how do we better leverage data and AI to improve that experience that I was talking about in the flywheel effect. The second is identifying more signals and intents to help you create actionable audiences. And as I said, be able to deliver an audience of one, but at scale. And on the right-hand side, just mea culpa. Like we understand that we haven't been the most open platform. We're doing a lot to change that. You'll get exposure to what we're calling the console so that you can have more control over designing surveys, doing A/B testing, getting access to performance reports, getting access to information about where the products are headed, understanding what, how your consumers are engaging with you. All of that, we want to open it up more and more for you to be able to have at your fingertips, and at the same time, provide more connections and integration into your tech stack. So we are working on what we hope are all of the things to make this a better experience for your consumers and an easier, more enjoyable, more valuable experience for you as the brand.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matt and Colin, for sharing your insights, giving real world examples and also real world results. I just want to wrap up with a couple key takeaways. So the post-purchase experience, as you've heard, is a growth lever and a differentiator. And differentiation is very much the focus of many brands in a crowded marketplace. And then, as Colin referred to, it's what customers expect. So it can not only meet customer expectations, it can help growth and increase customer lifetime value. There is that powerful combination of engagement and data, which there is so much to dig into there, but it really helps customers get their needs addressed, feel known, feel seen across every ownership moment. And that is key, is that it's across every ownership moment. And when you're able to integrate this experience across your organization, you're able to see more and faster outcomes. And that's easier said than done, we realize, but it is very much doable. And that centralized location for a customer go-to can really accelerate that. So with that, I want to thank everyone who's stayed on through the call, but more to come, not only on receiving this webinar and additional information, but as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we are committed to providing you insights and strategies to help you improve the post-purchase experience within your organization, and expect to see a lot more from us, including those product highlights that Colin touched on at the end. So again, thank you. Appreciate everyone's patience, and I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.